So then we could get into the last team, which is the Miami Heat. One of the most polarizing teams of the offseason for obvious reasons. We've banned Dame talk, trade talk rumors on the podcast until it actually happens because there's nothing coming out of it. So this is going to be with the assumption of who is on the roster right now. I want everyone to hear that before we start talking about them. Damian Lillard is not on this roster yet, so I'm not going to assume he's going to be on the roster. He most likely will be if a trade goes through, but he's not yet. So can't evaluate the team with Damian Lillard on it. So, yeah. For then you can get into their rotation if you want to do that, Ryan, really quick.
Yeah. So this roster is looking a little bit bare bones compared to even last year's like finals team, which was already a bit thin. So they've got Kyle Lowry, point guard, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, also kind of filling in some of that guard depth. Forwards, Caleb Martin, Jimmy Butler, Kevin Love, Haywood Highsmith, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez Jr. And then the bigs, they've got Bam Adebayo and Thomas Bryant. I think their starting lineup's going to look something like Kyle Lowry starting at 1, just because they have no other option. Tyler Hero at the 2, Caleb Martin I think is going to start, Jimmy Butler at the 4, and then Bam at the 5.
Yeah, I would think there'd be something similar, unless they want to do Kyle Lowry off the bench, which they did have success doing last season, and run a lineup of Tyler Hero, Josh Richardson, and then Jimmy, or I have no idea.
Yeah, it would be Jimmy and Caleb.
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 And then Bam at the 5, which could be really gross because Caleb was not good at the 4 last year when they had to run him extensive minutes there. So I don't know. Yeah, this roster right now is not great. Like there is a clear lack of offensive firepower right now, and this is the hardest team to really evaluate going into the season.
Yeah. I think looking at it though, they still the Hero, Butler, Bam core, and even a little bit like you could even add Robinson and Martin in there. They have so much continuity with this Spo-led team that it's hard to necessarily bet against them. Like we already saw this in this playoff run. Yeah. But they've also shown as a regular season team to not necessarily care, especially Jimmy. So I don't know if this is a season where they can do that. And I'm not feeling confident on this team. I don't see a consistent offense. They were bad last year in the regular season.
Yeah.
25th in offensive rating, 26th in field goal percentage. They don't have any like big depth. Like I don't have faith in Thomas Bryant. It's Bam versus the world down there.
Yeah, they're it's really because their starting lineup, when you look at it, isn't terrible. Like they lack size, but I do think that adding Josh Richardson helps a lot, and I do think that's an underrated pickup because for one, people forget that he was with the Heat for the first, I think, 4 years of his career. So he knows the culture, he knows the system. And he's also very versatile because, I mean, while he was there, he came in as a guard. So he has some playmaking chops. Of course, he's never going to be a lead playmaker, but he can help on that end. And when he's going, like, he's a decent scoring option, too. Like, he can definitely pop off for a cool 20. But when you get to that bench, I think their next point guard is Jamari Bouye on a two-way. And I love Jamari Bouye, but it's not going to cut it. No. And then you just have, like, Love, who's getting older and regressing fast. Dedmon, I don't even need to mention him, really. And then Jaime Jaquez and Nikola Jovic, who haven't shown anything. Even though I like, especially Jovic, I think he could be a very intriguing player for them. But, like, it's not.
They're young. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a year or two away from – they might show us that, like, hey, in a year or two, we can be in this roster. But right now, they're not.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, I'd be shocked if they're –
I could see Jaquez being an immediate contributor just because he was a 4-year guy in college.
Yeah.
And he's weird because, like, his skill set it shouldn't work, but it kind of does.
Yeah.
Like he almost seems like an outdated player because he works a lot in like the high post and the mid range.
Yeah.
But like it kind of does, and he fits the Heat perfectly. But Jovic is more. Even though I think he has a higher ceiling, he's like his skill set isn't something the Heat have really had recently. So it's kind of
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, we'll see. It's hard to put a rookie into the Heat system and immediately expect results, but also we've also seen them do it plenty of times with just like 1-2 year guys at the same time. You
Yeah.
just have to see what. It's so weird that it's a thing, but the Heat system makes or break guys, and I think
Yeah.
Conley can be good, but I don't want to bet on a rookie.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on him either. But I think him being a 4-year guy in college does help.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I think if they do make the Dame trade and somehow they keep one of Jovic or Hawkes, which I'm going to be honest, there's actually a chance. Like there is, they keep one of them. Like I bet if they, okay, I don't think they keep Jovic at all, but I bet there's a chance Hawkes stays.
The problem
just
is
'cause-
that, yeah, they're not. I don't think there's a really that high of a chance that they keep Jovic because the only thing that the Trailblazers need right now is a
Bigs.
big. So why would they not trade for a
No,
big?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think, but Hawkes for sure, I think has a chance of staying on the roster. And
Yeah.
with another scorer, I think his play style fits a lot more. I'm just looking at this roster and the scoring is so.
Yeah, that's the biggest question mark for sure. Like this roster is weird because they lack a lot of offensive firepower and they don't have like the prolific scorer, like the legit superstar go-to guy that a lot of these other teams in the East have, at least in the playoffs, because Jimmy, or at least in the regular season, I mean, because Jimmy turns into a different player in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I actually think this team is going to be better than they were last year, even though the roster, it feels a little bit gutted. I think, losing Max Strus and Gabe Vincent are big losses because those players played a lot of minutes for them last year and the year before that. But I think there's a lot to be looking forward to. Caleb Martin showed a lot in these last playoffs. Duncan Robinson kind of had a bit of a career resurgence after having like a year of basically not playing. Tyler Hero is going to be back from his injury that kept him out of the playoffs. And overall, the momentum that they are coming off from that finals run, I think can actually push this team pretty far this regular season. I think riding off that great run, I think a lot of that is going to carry over for next season. And they haven't made the Dame trade, so we can't evaluate the team under any sort of real assumption that a Dame trade is going to be made. Just because, like from all accounts, there has been zero communication between Pat Riley and Joe Cronin for about a month now.
Matthias is just like,
I feel bad for you, bro.
Dude, we're gonna roll out a lineup with Anthony Simons as small forward game one, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. Dude.
So we just have no. There has been zero smoke about any Dame updates to Miami, so we're just we have to just assume that by the start of the season and even by the trade deadline that it's just not coming. But I still think this Heat roster can be better than they were, and I think some of those teams in like the middle of the East might be a little bit worse, or maybe not worse, but might wane out a little bit. Like I don't think the Sixers are going to be as good as they were last year. I think that's a team that the Heat could probably jump. The Hawks, I think we all kind of like, but Brooklyn's not going to be 6 again. They're going to fall way down. I think Miami Heat can easily take their spot. So for a range for the Heat, I think they could be as high as 3rd if all the dominoes kind of fall.
Without Dame, okay.
And if everything falls into place. And then for the low ends, I could just be like completely wrong, and they might just end up being like 7th or 8th again. So if I had to choose one spot, I'd probably say like 5th or 6th for the Heat, but they're a super tough team to evaluate.
Yeah, I think for me too, like honestly, like when I was looking at it, I was like, if they got Dame and they kept some of the pieces that work well, I could see this team finishing like they could be like the first seed, but also they could be like this if they just stay how they are and they still have the injury issues because there's a lot of older players on this team that have had injury issues. Like Kyle Lowry's like he's 37. Like he's not going to be healthy the entire season. Even like Jimmy's had injury issues before, like in the regular season, especially with him not taking the regular season super serious the last few. Like he definitely will sit out games if he's injured. Like he's not going to play through those a lot of the times unless they really need him to. Which especially early in the season he tends to rest those games.
Kevin Love too.
And also, like a big part of their big run to go to the finals was like a crazy 3-point shooting run. I mean, they were shooting like 50% from 3 in multiple series. Like, I don't think that offense is going to translate at all.
Yeah.
And Duncan Robinson was almost unplayable all regular season last year. And then the playoffs, he just became like a great shooter again. And he was like getting to the rim at will. Like it was like the weirdest transition ever from regular season to playoffs. So I don't know. I think there's definitely just a world where a lot of these guys, the offense is really, really rough, but the defense is really good as it usually is. And I think at this point with the Heat, we kind of know what we're getting in the regular season. That's why it's so hard to evaluate them because they aren't rolling out 100% trying all the time. But I think this is a year with how deep the East is. I think there's some teams that could sneak up on them if they're not really taking it serious the whole year. So for me, same thing. I think if this roster is how it is right now, I'd probably have them finishing about the 4th or 5th seed, probably. I think they'll be better than they were last year. Just because they had like a month and a half where like literally every player on the roster was hurt. So I think they'll definitely finish better than last year. So I'd probably say like my pick for them would probably be the 5th seed, 4th or 5th seed.
Yeah. Honestly, I think even though we do know that Jimmy and Co kind of tend to take the regular season a little bit more lackadaisically, people forget that 2 years ago they were one of the higher seeds.
Yeah, they were the 1 seed.
Period of time, they were the 1 seed. Yeah, or did they finish as the 1 seed?
Yeah, in 2022 they were the 1 seed.
Okay, yeah. So like
that's why Boston and Milwaukee matched up in the second round. It's because they were the 2 and 3 seeds.
That's right. Yeah, and I could definitely I think I don't think it happens again, but just because they've shown the capacity to be willing to compete, and they're a very streaky team, but that streakiness can work in their favor if they go on if they get really comfortable and get momentum. So I think, like Ryan said, if all the dominoes fall into place, I could see them getting the 3 seed, but I could also see them falling as low as the 8 seed. Although I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year. It really just depends on health because their roster is old. But I think, 4 or 5. I think I had the Hawks 4 or 5 too. So whichever one they don't grab, the Heat will.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little lower on the Heat roster without Dame. Barring a Dame trade, no Dame, I think they're a 5 to 8 or 9 seed. I get the injury concern from last year. That I know they missed a lot of time where their whole core was hurt, but I think the fact that on paper this roster is a lot worse, and what made their offense run was their continuity, like you said, Jeff.
Yeah.
And they lost almost all of that. And so it's the identity of the team is going to be very, very different, and they're going to have to deal with the potential of am I getting traded, blah, blah, blah. I think the first part of the year is going to be tough on the Heat. Yeah. But like you said, I think if Dame gets traded there, their biggest hole is filled with a top 5 offensive engine.
Yeah.
Then you have Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler next to him, and it's okay, they can be a 1 seed. So if I were to bet, I put them at 6. I wouldn't say them miss the playoffs, but they'll be a borderline playing team for sure.
Yeah.
On the upper side.
Yeah, for sure.